wasn't too long ago that I made a review for the Flowtoys Flowchuck. And upon reviewing the review, I realized that there is a lot of elements missing that I was trying to convey, and somehow it got lost along the way. And what I ended up with was something a little more disjointed than what I had wanted to share with you all. You may have had questions from it. So with this said, I decided to make a new approach to the Flowtoys Flowchucks, hopefully answer more of your questions and tell you just how it feels. So welcome back, my name is Ken, and this is Flowchucks. First, let me tell you, you do also get 4 micro USB chargers. I don't know if you can see this in the camera, but yeah, it's a cable. You get 4 of them because you have, of course, 4 lights. You can charge these lights by simply plugging them in because they have their own built-in battery, so you don't have to worry about changing batteries. You just plug them in and, well, you pull them out of the nunchuck, of course. You can't plug it in from there. You plug the cable in, and then you either put it into a 4-port USB hub or your computer or anything that can charge USBs, basically. To say that the lights are beautiful, that is not necessarily a surprise because I've seen their quality of their work before. But the thing that surprised me the most was the durability and the softness of these chucks. And by soft, I don't necessarily mean like there's a certain density that you get with nunchucks. For instance, when you buy very high quality wood nunchucks, sometimes they are so dense that if you hit yourself, you're going to be punished for days, right? And to some degree that can be helpful in the learning process, especially for the martial arts nunchucks. But I've always said, go soft, use foam. That way if you hit yourself, you don't spend days trying to recuperate and recover. With these chucks, though, they're very soft. Just the way that they give from impact, and also because you have these thick silicone caps at the end, and I love them. These ends right here is what's where most of the force of a chuck is right about this area. So now, like, I can comfortably, well, I don't know if that's ever comfortable, but I can hit myself without hurting myself. So this means I can recommend these nunchucks as not only a performance tool, but also as a practice tool, which is great. Let's talk about durability for a minute here. The one thing I loved about the durability aspect of it is going to be that at the very top here, not only did I have to push these in, and they're secured, you probably can't see them, but there's these O-rings inside, it makes it nice and tight, and then I also have 2 screws that I can put in on each side. So these are not flying off. That's awesome. That's really good to know because this is always a concern, especially in the fire department. Like when I'm spinning fire chucks, I'm always concerned about the chain or the string and how durable that is. But with 4 screws coming in like this, I really don't see these flying off. I highly recommend that you go online and read the manual because I'm still learning the modes myself. So I don't necessarily want to go through the modes and tell you about all the different patterns that you can make with it. But what I can do is I can give you a little bit of advice. And the advice is, if you plan to do a lot of hand rolls and motions like this, make sure both sides of your nunchuck are coordinated well. Because if you have too much colors going on at the same time, for instance, if this is strobing a rainbow color and this is strobing a rainbow color, it's going to look like a mesh of colors. And you may not get the effect that you're looking for. So a lot of times you may want to use the same modes on both sides. Now the other approach is, with the chuck, which is really awesome about the chucks, is the fact that you can spin it one at a time. You don't have to spin them both at the same time. In most cases, when you're doing figure 8 wrist rolls, they're both moving at the same time, and it's going to look like a mesh of both colors that you've been using, right? But if you just hold one, like so, and you do your flow with one chuck, right? Then that also gives you the ability to hand roll it and change the color. So you effectively changing the color with each hand roll. This is great because this will be able to allow you to dynamically shift your style when you're spinning. So if you go with this approach here, you can, for instance, have something blinking on one end and have something solid on the other. And then when you're in the middle of a flow, for instance, you can say every time it's blinking, it's going to be when the music's fast and it's hitting hard. And every time I go slow, and I do this slow, drawn-out style, I'm going to have this one waving around so the audience can see the fluidity of it. and all of a sudden it's fast, and then I'm doing hyper style with this one. You guys kind of see what I'm saying though, right? Basically, you can either treat it as a whole solid pattern where the whole thing is making a pattern simultaneously, like so, and then you're going to want to program all 4 of them for that, or you can break them in half and say half of it is for this feel and the other half is for this feel. So every nunchuck has its own personality per se. For instance, when I'm doing fire chucks, it'll bring out different moves than if I'm doing foam chucks, just because of the weight, the distribution, the balancing point. All these factors come into play with how I want to flow with them. The flowchuck is no different. Let me show you some of my favorite techniques to do with the flowchucks. One is, because it's got such a thick rope, I can do a wheel. I've never been able to do a wheel so easily than with the flowchuck. I feel like I can just go on and on and on with that one. Pretty much anything that deals with string manipulations is great because this is thick, so it almost feels like a chain to me, but it's flexible, so I can actually get a little bit more than I could with the chain. Syncopated wrist rolls are also great. These right here, they just go so nicely. I feel like pretty much anything that deals with the balance between these two, between the string, is just, it's like butter. Works really well. So if you're curious on improving your digit rolls, getting it down a little bit easier, or anything that deals with finger manipulations, syncopated, 720 wrist rolls are another one, just do it right away. No problem. So in closing, I just want to say that there is no perfect. There's no perfect anything. I mean, there's no perfect anything. There's no perfect poi, there's no perfect staff, there's no perfect nunchuck, there's no perfect person, you know? Perfection is all in your head. So, there might be a poi that's perfect for this person's style, or there might be a staff that's perfect for contact, but, you know, if a ninja spinner picked up a big heavy staff, it may not be perfect for him. So I think the most important thing is to stop thinking in terms of good or bad, because there's going to be tools that are good for certain types of styles, certain types of elements. So instead, look at every single prop, and person for that matter, not necessarily as good or bad, but just characteristics, and thinking about situations where you can capitalize on the characteristics. With that said, for myself, this is one of the closest tools that I could recommend in terms of training and performing that work so well hand in hand. For my style, it's very near perfect, very near perfect. There's not a lot that I can't do with this thing. And the more that I play with it, and the more that I learn its characteristic, the more I can unlock with this. And that's just one more thing that you should also know, is the fact that no matter what review or what someone says about it, the most important thing is how you communicate with it. So I highly encourage you, if you have a friend, or if there's someone else that has a pair, definitely play with it and listen to how it speaks to you. For me, I love these chucks. That's why I'm making another video about it, because I just wanted to make sure you guys understood, that you guys heard the character behind this chuck. Thank you, and we'll talk to you soon.